The stage is set. They've come from all around iRacing to find out who's the king of the mountain. It's time to meet your 2023 IROC drivers. In the champion's purple number 1, former Elite Delara IR18 champion of 2021 Season B, the former Velocity Online Racing IndyCar champion of 2021, and the reigning and defending IROC champion. It's Big Car D Santa, Alex Vandesant. Another multi-champion in the Felva Orange 14, the former Coast to Coast Cup champion of Season 2 and Season 3 in 2021, the current Sidewinder 1987 Cup champion of 2022, and the current 100% Division 2 champion, Lucas Hoytsma. In the Dustin's Red number 2, the man that won it all in the inaugural 100% IROC Series, the 100% Cup Iron Man himself, Kevin Consistency Steele. In the Natty Light Blue 13, making his third run at the IROC crown, the inaugural 100% Cup Series champion of 2020, Cam Stone. And in the Jimmy Strong Gold number 3, a jack of all trades, the Bootleg Racing League Classic Cup Late Model, Tour Modified, and Super Late Model champion of 2022, J.R. Shepard. In the None More Black number 10, the homegrown young gun, the current 100% Cup champion of 2022, John Delaney. Another first-time invitee making his debut in IROC. In the Taylor Swift Red number 7, the former SCRL Cup champion of 2021, the Devil on Dirt, the Moist King of the Mud, Blake Giglio. Sporting the Baja Blast Green number 9, representing Lionheart, the Speedway Series champion of 2022, Matt Taylor. And in the Sunoco Yellow number 6, making his second campaign in the IROC Series, the former Sunday Night NASCAR Cup Series champion of 2021, Short Track Joe Stafford. In the Hefty Orange number 8, the 2018 Indy Elite Series champion, the PRL Indy Pro 2000 Season 4 2020 champion, and the current Classic IndyCar Series champion, Josh Shedd. And making his third series attempt to claim best of the best in the Plum Crazy 16, the 100% Cup Darlington 500 winner in 2022, the all-time leading winner in the 100% Cup Series with 31 wins, Bryson Hixenbach. In the Birdman Blue number 5, also representing Lionheart, the Retro Series champion of 2022, Mike Rasmus. Making his debut in the Pebble Silver 15, the current Sunday Night NASCAR Cup champion, RJ Root. Making his second go in the IROC Series in the British Racing Green 11. The self-proclaimed best there is. He wakes up in the morning and pisses excellence. The former 100% Cup champion of 2021, the balding bullet himself, Adam Benefield. Returning to IROC 3 in the Victoria's Secret 12, the former Virtual Cup Series champion of 2021, and the current SSRL Elite Cup champion of 2022, Tim Latham. Ladies and gentlemen, your Invitational Race of Champions Series 3 grid.
All right, guys, got about 30 seconds to grid, about 30 seconds to grid.
Race fans, welcome to the 100% IROC series here at Charlotte, I believe, for some oval racing action. I'm Andre Grambush, joined alongside Cody Bird, doing a little bit of double duty, doing some commentating and producing, filling in for
All right,
Carlos.
boys,
Carlos,
welcome
if you're
out
out there, kind of doubt you're
to
watching.
Charlotte
Sounded
for
like your night was going
round
to be busy, but
three
if you
of
are,
IROC.
how you doing?
We have
Hope
six
you're
head
having
lap
some
tonight,
fun,
about 100
like we're
miles.
going to be having for
Tonight you
this
will
race.
have
Looks
an
like
extra
we
set of
do have
tires
the
that you can
drivers
run
on
so
the
that you
grid,
don't have
Cody,
to
and of
underrun
course,
laps. I
I
assume the
believe
car
the
will
grid is
last,
just going
but
to
just
be
in case.
last week's finishing
Keep in mind, you
results
can only pit for
put in
tires under
reverse. So
green
the drivers
flag.
who
You can
did
only
really
pit for
well last
tires
week got
under
to kind
green
of race their
flag.
way up through
Tire
the
advantage for
field.
you.
Adam Benefiel, that number 11,
Other than
well, he
that,
wasn't here last week, so
the
that pretty much
star crew is at
guarantees
your viewing
him
discretion
on
once the pace
pole.
car is off the
Yeah,
track.
absolutely, Andre. And I
The
apologize
close
to all the
quarters, as
viewers.
always, for the
Made
last
the
few
joke
rounds, so
earlier.
you'll be in there pretty
This is
tight.
definitely
So
not three
take it
wide
a bit easy in the beginning. Try to get
TV
some cars to the end.
quality. It's better. That meme earlier
And
today,
good luck.
Andre, kind of
Remember,
signified
you
it.
guys are the best.
Uh,
Love you all.
don't three wide at home is
Hey,
Bird Vision
Adam.
TV. So here we are. So I apologize for any difficulties there.
What's up?
But yes, it
Y'all
looks
screwed
like
up
Adam
letting me start on
Benefiel
the
and
pole.
Kevin
That's
Steele are going to be on the
scary.
front row here at Charlotte, and these two have shown
We're all
before,
fucking dead.
especially at Charlotte, they are two of the best on
Oh, yeah,
ovals,
no, good
Andre.
luck to all competitors except for Josh.
Yeah, they
Chisholm,
really are.
please. Josh,
And
stand in.
just give me 1 second here. The stream's kind of bugging out on me. There we go.
Still
Yeah,
love you,
definitely
buddy.
some of the best on oval, but I think with this car, it's going to be a bit of a great equalizer. We're going to see a lot of drafting. I kind of predict a sort of restrictor plate style racing with this car. It doesn't quite have the horsepower that a Cup car has, so we're not going to quite be getting up to those speeds on the straightaways. And of course, you put that big wing on the back of the car, and the aerodynamics of this thing are going to really produce some huge runs. So I don't really see anybody running away with it. We did have a race at Indianapolis for the first race of the year. It was not broadcast, but on the oval portions of that track, we had a ton of really close racing and a ton of drafting, which I think is going to be emulated here. So really a bit of a toss-up, anybody's game as the pace car pulls off, makes that hard left turn. It is going to be Adam Benefiel leading their way to the green flag, and Joshua Chin all the way in the back. He's undefeated so far in the IROC series. We'll see if he can capture that magic again 3 times in a row. Look at that jump that Benefiel got. He was able to kind of play some mind games with the field there, got out and away a little bit better than I expected. Got a 3-car length gap by the time he got into turn 1. But now, as predicted, look at that draft, Cody. He was 3 or 4 car lengths out and away. Then we got Lucas Hoitzma getting that big run on the outside. Let's see if he can do anything with it. Not quite. He's not going to have the help, but John Delaney, he is right behind our leader, as well as a train of cars. The bottom line is just really formed up right now, and that's going to give them a bit of an advantage. But look at this bump drafting on lap 2, Cody.
Yeah, absolutely, Andre. And you can already see Jonathan Delaney and Lucas Hoitzma. They're two of the best plate racers we have in this series, with John winning countless times on super speedways and 100% Cup Series. But, I mean, it looks like he's content to ride in second right now behind Adam Benefield, with Alex Van de Sant in third right now. Running a close third, just giving a little gap just in case something crazy happens here.
Yeah, obviously, I think these drivers are hoping to avoid disaster early on, especially some of these drivers that kind of have to work their way up through the grid here. But, going back to what you said about John, I don't think John's ever content. I, I don't know. Every time I say that John is calmed down and that he's more of a patient driver, he seems to prove me wrong and make some crazy aggressive move. And he is right on the bumper of Benefield. Look at that, diving down. He's looking high, looking low, just waiting for Benefield to make a mistake. And actually, right there, I think he legitimately thought about going for an overtake. And he looked in that rearview mirror. He saw he had no help. And that's going to be the key here. You're going to need somebody to help you if you're going to make the pass. You can see how they're drafting. You see how close this is. If you step out of line and you have nobody to help you, it's just like Talladega, just like Daytona. You're going to be going to the back like you just put a parachute out of the back of your car. And nobody wants to do that, especially if you're in a pretty good position there, P2, P3, or even in the lead like Benefiel. You want to kind of keep your position, put yourself in a solid standing for later on in the race. But right now, the bottom is absolutely dominant. I would have to expect that as the race goes on, the top line becomes a little bit more viable, just because generally in this type of racing, where it's more or less flat out, once the tires wear, the bottom gets harder to hold. You can move up to the top, carry a little bit more momentum, and not have to lift. Whereas eventually, I think they are going to have to lift down low. So we may see it become multi-groove as the race goes on. But right now, just a freight train on the bottom. John Delaney showing no patience. And that's the difference between these drivers. Look at this, Cody. You got John Delaney just bump drafting Benefiel down the straightaways every single time. He's pushing him through the quad oval. And then you've got third place, Alex Van de Sant. I don't think he's put the bumper to John a single time. Van de Sant showing a lot of restraint, a lot of patience, as is Cameron Stone back there in fourth, Matt Taylor in fifth. These guys are giving each other room. And then he just got Delaney, and he's saying, all right, Adam, either you're going to go or we're going to go. One of the two.
Yeah, absolutely. And can we not talk about bump drafting in quad ovals, please, Andre? Still have a few nightmares here and there about that. But as you can see, John is still right on the back bumper, and if we go to an in-car, you can see what he sees right now. And, well, that's Adam, so that's not a very good choice there. There we go. There's John's cockpit view. And as you can see, you're not... While it's more open than the Cup cars when you draft, these cars, you still, once you're tucked in behind somebody, you really cannot see in front of you. And it's making it, I'm sure, really difficult for John to keep his line. As you can see him, he has an opening there and doesn't take it. That kind of surprises me there, Andre.
Well, I think if he tried to go for that opening, Benefiel definitely would have blocked that. But you're right. Once you're tucked in behind somebody, it is very, very difficult to see. And I think that's part of the reason a lot of these guys are giving room. I mean, right here, riding along board with the number 12, Timothy Latham, you can see he's kind of just hanging back. He's watching this all transpire. He's got a clear view of everything in front of him. If something happens, somebody gets sideways, that smoke shows up in the windshield, he's got a clear view and plenty of time to react. But you compare that to that onboard shot we had of John, I mean, I think that bump drafting is probably why he's weaving so much. If you look at that number 10, I mean, he's just up and down the track, and I think it's because he just genuinely can't see where he is as he is bump drafting the ever-living, not going to say it, out of Benefiel.
Yeah.
But look at this top line forming up now. Could have got two cars up top. Can't quite make out who those are. It's an orange car, the number 14. So the number 14, Lucas Hoytsma, with the number 2 machine, it looks like. Kevin Steele kind of trying to form up a top line, see if they can get anybody to go with them, but so far, nobody really wanting to take that risk.
Yeah, absolutely, Andre. And I heard prior to this race, and very briefly, the drivers were afraid of wadding these up. Of course, a lot of these guys do not have experiences with this car on an oval. And you got to think about last week as well, Andre. There was the Daytona 24 Hours. That's a road course. And these guys trying to get back in the groove of an oval, just trying to get their nerves settled back in. And you can even see two guys in the back of the field right now too, Andre, and Joshua Chin and J.R. Shepard. Just content to ride in the back, see what's going to unfold, not really losing the draft, even though Joshua is kind of in the danger zone, as I would say.
Yeah, I mean, the drafting range is definitely a little bit bigger with these cars than the Cup car, I would assume, just because of the giant hole that they punch in the air with that big wing and kind of the boxy shape of the body. But, Joshua Chin, again, undefeated so far in the IROC series. He's 2 for 2, one of the fastest in the entire grid. And he said last week in his interview that his plan in that race was primarily just to hang back until the very end. He wanted to conserve tires. He wanted to see what everybody else was doing. And he didn't really want to be up front until the end of the race. He just happened to be faster than everybody else while he was cruising. So he accidentally found himself up front. That was his words. And, he just pulled away and let it happen and got himself a pretty good win. And so he's in a good points position. Doesn't really need to be up there battling. Doesn't need to be in that giant pack up there, which is definitely, if there's going to be an accident, if something happens, it's going to be up there. It's going to be in the front where everybody's bump drafting, everybody's boxed in. He doesn't need to put himself in that risk. He could ride in the back, and if it doesn't work out, he doesn't get up there quick enough or doesn't get the win, well, he's got some points in the bank, and it's not really much of a problem. So I would expect him to make a late race charge for it, but in the meantime, he's going to ride back there while these guys are doing this. We've got that top line forming up a little bit more, as I believe that is the number 9, Matt Taylor, that has joined Lucas Hoitzma and Kevin Steele on the top line. So now we got 3 up top. We get 1 more, he might be cooking with something there, but the bottom lane's still just dominant. You see all those cars: Cameron Stone, Bryson Hixenbaugh, Adam Benefield, John Delaney, even Joe Stafford down there. All these drivers just rocking the bottom lane. But again, I think that's it's a temporary plan there, Cody, because eventually those tires will wear, and I think they're going to have to migrate up to where Hoitzma is right now.
I agree with you, Andre, right there. And something else I heard when we went to that in-car is if you're trailing somebody, it sounds like these guys are shifting from 5th to 6th gear. And you kind of even saw it, they were on the rev chip on the front stretch going into turn 1, where they were shifting into 6th, just trying to get that run off. And, of course, my famous saying, cheese grater, and Charlotte has been known to wear tires very quickly. I remember, I want to say back in May when I attempted to run the Division 2 race here, my car did not want to stay straight at all. The tires were burning off. Granted, I'm very hard on the tires, Andre, you know that one. But this track just does not like tires, and it's going to keep wearing.
And you mentioned the shifting, and I got to think that's just another element that puts this race in pretty good standing for Josh Chin back there. Is kind of watching these guys. He comes from an IndyCar league, and in IndyCar, on a lot of the ovals, you do try to shift in a way that kind of optimizes your revs and keeps the momentum up. So you might downshift in a corner, even though you're not really slowing down that much, just so you can get a little bit more torque coming out. And it's a little bit different from how you'd kind of consider shifting in a stock car and any other type of racing. And that's kind of what they're doing right here. So maybe some experience he had in IndyCar and some lessons he learned over there can come over here and help him out. So we'll have to wait and see. But I don't know, man. I'm just amazed at this lead pack. I mean, we're coming up on lap 20 when they cross the line. These guys have been door-to-door, bumper-to-bumper this entire time. Lap 20 out of 67 so far. And I'm going to knock on wood here. I don't want to jinx it. But so far, so good.
Yeah, just keep that announcer curse going, Andre, so I don't do it. But as you can see, yeah, 2 lanes are forming. They got the top line going. What's going to take for this top line to kind of get a rolling, and it just happened, was Bryson Hixenbaugh going to that top line to just generate that forward momentum going forward. And it seems like it's starting to work as there's more cars up top. And, I mean, again, simple math says 5 is greater than 4.
Absolutely. And, I got to think as well that some of these drivers are starting to get impatient due to the lap count. There is a point bonus for the most laps led. Adam Benefield, having missed last week, is not in very good point standing. And I think even if he won tonight and won next week in the final race of the series, he'd have a tough time matching the amount of points that Joshua Chin has acquired. So really those bonus points, if they go to Benefield... Whoa, we got a huge incident going into turn 1. Benefield collected a few others. It was a purple machine. It may have been Van de Sant.
Let's go to the replay here. Sorry, it's going to take me a little. I don't have the full... It looks like Bryson Hixenbaugh
Involved. I think Van de Sant may have also been collected, but we're going to take a look and see exactly what happened. And this is what I was afraid of. This is what happens, bump drafting a little bit too much. Cameron Stone on the bumper of Bryson Hixenbaugh in that 16. Bryson actually gets ahead by just a little bit, but then that rear end comes up off the ground, gets swirly, gets into Benefield. I know he bumped into some other cars, but I don't know if they were completely taken out of the race or what exactly happened there. Take another look at it here. You can see Bryson just pointed towards that outside, overcorrects, snaps down to the bottom. And miraculously, other than scraping the wall, Kevin Steele scraped the wall. I believe it may have been Stafford or maybe Hoitzma that also scraped the wall there. But other than that, pretty much the whole field got through.
Yeah, well, let's go to a far chase here. Kind of looked like
Again,
Cam got
pit road
into the
is
back
open for those with damage.
Bryson. I don't know if you saw
can
that
fix
too.
damage only, no tires.
Oh, yeah, no, that was definitely a bump
tires,
draft
no
gone wrong.
fuel,
Like I said, the
yellow.
rear tires came up off the ground. He was getting a shove from Cameron Stone, and then that actually moved Cam up to the lead. But we'll go to the onboard here. You can see he's just trying to get him up front. This wasn't malicious by any means. This was just Cam being aggressive, trying to get Bryson up to the front. And he does. He succeeds for about a nanosecond, and then it all goes awry right there. Just misaligned a little bit. And Bryson exists, and then he just doesn't. He's just gone. So kind of a comedic view there, but not sure if Cam's going to be able to keep his position for this restart. That'd be an interesting way to get the top position. But as I was saying before this all transpired, there is a certain amount of bonus points that goes to the driver that leads the most laps of the race. And if Benefiel had continued to lead that freight train to lap 34, he would have completely cinched that most laps led. So I'm sure some of those drivers, the reason that they got aggressive was just because they were trying to get out front and make sure that Benefiel couldn't clinch the most laps led. They wanted to make it a competition. And unfortunately, just a little bit too aggressive on the bump draft. And I mean, you look at the nose of these things, Cody. We're looking at a cone. I mean, it is the Chevrolet stock car front end on crack. I mean, it's even more pointed. Not exactly designed for bump drafting. Not really something you do in road racing necessarily. Not something you want to do on a car that has louvers and splitters and all that fancy aerodynamic attachment on the front. Don't really want to do that. But we do have a driver in the infield care center, Adam Benefiel. Let's see what he's got to say. Adam Benefiel, you got a copy?
Yes, sir.
First off, Adam, you had a great run going there. Led the first 21 laps of the race, and then it looked like Bryson just cleaned you out there, man. What happened?
Yeah, you get two non-drivers like Bryson and Stone together, crap like that happens. It's surprising. They get invites to a Champions League, but somehow they screwed up and won one of those.
Now, I got to say, Adam, you look at the front end of this car and you're kind of, I was just telling Cody, you're looking at a cone. I mean, this is a car that is not even remotely designed for bump drafting. So how do you feel about that aggressive bump drafting that led to that?
I mean, it was fine, like if you look at two people that know how to drive like me and Delaney, we were perfectly fine. And then you get a little less talent trying to do it, and you end up with a total vets.
Yeah, definitely an unfortunate situation. Now, I got to ask, does this maybe re-stir the old rivalry there with that, well, I was going to say 63. He's not in that car, but with Bryson Nixonbach.
Oh, I mean, every chance I get, he'll be sitting in the front row of turn one, whatever track we go to next.
All right. Well, we're looking forward to it. Always love a good rivalry, but we're sorry to see your night end like that. You definitely looked pretty fast out there. And I got to ask, what was it like having Delaney behind you? I mean, he was pushing you every straightaway, every quad oval. Did you ever get nervous behind the wheel, or do you feel pretty comfortable?
Are you kidding me? He's a freaking. He went all the way to road to pro or the pro, man. He's a wheel man. He's a talent. It was perfectly fine. It's like driving a Cadillac to church on Sunday morning. I mean, it's a smooth ride. And then you get those other two that can't drive a hot wedge up Snowman's rear. And, you get
just to clarify,
freaking rookie streak stop stuff.
I mean, with you and Bryson working together on the Coke side of things, you think maybe you can give him some driving lessons, maybe make sure this doesn't happen again?
You can't teach talent. He ain't got no chance.
Ain't that the truth? Well, Adam, they're about to go green. Thank you for your time. I always appreciate it.
I enjoyed it. We'll see y'all next week.
Hopefully we'll catch you next week.
All right, buddy.
Oh, man. I love it when he comes up in the booth.
I've never really gotten to experience that, Andre. And I can say I fully appreciated that there tonight. Needed a good laugh. But as you mentioned, looks like we're about to go green here with Cameron Stone starting P1 on this restart and Alex Van de Sant lining up alongside of him. Former teammates in 100%, and we'll see if any allegiance is here with Cam's new boss, Kevin Steele, right behind him.
Yeah, we'll have to see how this restart goes. Again, I'm a little surprised that Cam got to keep the position. But, hey, any way you can get to the front, we'll see what exactly happens. But again, just like Adam Benefiel in that first start, he's going to get a really good jump out by about 4 car lengths there. And what you're going to see is when they get to the straightaway, Kevin Steele right behind him, about to get a huge run with the help of Lucas Hoytsma. who again, I think, whoa, a little bit squirrely there. Another bump draft gone wrong. The outside line making a move that I think is a bit unintentional there, Cody. I don't think they meant to dive up there, but number 2 had a bit of a mind of its own, and it is going to be Kevin Steele that leads this lap. Can he get clear of Cam? Yes, he can. And the question is he going to duck down and leave Hoytsma out to dry? No. Hoytsma actually had room to dip down. He didn't take it. Thought it was too much of a risk there. So Kevin Steele to the point in the number 2. And Lucas Hoytsma, he's all on his own. And if he can't find a place to slot down, he's going backward, but he does. He saw that in his mirror. He ducked down, and that was the correct move, I got to say, because, man, oh, man, the draft is so powerful here. And now he's going to be in P3, got another shot at it. But Cody, I'm looking at the leaderboard. Look at P5. Well, actually, never mind. The leaderboard just changed. Look at P10, Joshua Chin. I thought he was up to the top 5. The leaderboard was inaccurate, but Josh Chin still kind of riding back here, watching this transpire. And I think that whatever just happened there with Bryson Nixonbaugh and Cam Stone just sort of validated Joshua Chin's strategy here, just riding around in the back, because now he knows these guys are going to get aggressive. The bump draft can go wrong. And there's still a lot of cars up there, so potential for chaos is pretty high. As long as he stays in the draft, he should be all right. But I don't know, Cody. He's pretty far back there. I got to wonder what exactly the draft range is, because he actually might be slipping out of it.
Yeah, I definitely think he's starting to slip out of this draft by a large margin. I don't know if he's going with the Cody Bird strategy at super speedways of just kind of riding in the back and counting all the flags on the American flag down the backstretch. But I don't think this has been part of his plan. I think he ended up seeing what just happened, especially with Kevin and Lucas, and just decided, I'm going to bide my time. There's going to be another big wreck, and just see what happens from there.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's a smart play, and just kind of playing with fire there, being as far back as he is. Definitely want to stay within the draft. But while we're talking about Josh, we did have another change for the lead. Cameron Stone got back to the point somehow, and that put Kevin Steele back to 3rd, Lucas Hoytsma P2. Lucas and Kevin have been working really well together all race long. I mean, pretty much since the drop of the green, they've been kind of hooked up. And definitely, I think if you want to have a shot at this race, you got to have somebody that you can work with, somebody you can trust. And we've kind of seen a few pairings before the wreck. We had Adam Benefiel and John Delaney. They were working together pretty well. You've had, obviously, like we said, Kevin and Lucas. Bryson and Cam were working together pretty well before that wreck, and then suddenly they weren't working together too well. So, you got to try to pair up, got to try to have a partner, but at the same time, allies and friends only go so far. Once that white flag comes out, I think all that friendship sort of evaporates.
Yeah, absolutely, Andre. And as you can see here, it seems like the front pack is starting to kind of separate themselves, with the bottom lane definitely dominating. And as you can see now, these guys are breaking away. Cameron Stone leading this pack in front of Lucas Hoytsma. And we'll see what happens here, but I would imagine that Alex Van de Sande is trying to get that top line forming, and he has a great pusher behind him in Jonathan Delaney.
Yeah, definitely, if you got Delaney behind you, you already saw what he could do with Adam Benefiel, and he was doing a heck of a job bump drafting. Like I said, he was pushing Adam Benefiel for upwards of 20 laps. I mean, just time after time, straightaway after straightaway, and they never really got too squirrely, never were at risk of wrecking. So you know that he can do the job and that he can do it well. The question is, can you handle the push? Because, bump drafting is a two-way street. You got to have somebody that can push, and you got to have somebody that can take the push. And as well as I do, Cody, sometimes you get that push, you're not ready for it. That rear end gets a little bit light on you, and suddenly, you're pulling a Higginbotham.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you can kind of see right now, with the packs kind of forming, biding their time, waiting. I mean, we're not even to halfway yet, Andre, and it kind of looks like Van de Sande wants to get up to the front, especially with Joshua Chin kind of running in the back. All these guys are seeing a points-getting opportunity right now with laps led, bonus points, and all that, because I would have to imagine, without looking at the points too well, Joshua Chin wins this race. He is pretty much a guarantee to win the championship this year.
Yeah, I mean, he's in a really good point situation. But of course, getting another win never hurt anybody. And I did mention I wondered what the drafting range was with these cars. And we had Dan Fields in the chat. Now, I don't trust anything Dan Fields says. I take everything he says with not a grain of salt, but a salt lick. Just a whole salt lick, like for deer. Every time he says anything, do not trust Dan Fields. This is a menace to society. But he said the drafting range is about 1.8 seconds, which does sound somewhat accurate. And if you look at the timing and scoring, Joshua Chin is about 5 seconds back from J.R. Shepard, so I don't think it's a question anymore. I think he is definitely outside of the drafting range. He's going to need some help, and by that we mean a yellow flag, because he is going to continue to drop back. When you see this at Talladega Daytona, when somebody slips out of that draft, it doesn't take long to go a lap down and to continue to lose time. So kind of unfortunate. Now, he does have some friends in this league. I know there's some people in this race that he's raced with prior. And sometimes in that situation, somebody can drop back from the pack just far enough that you can get their draft and you can kind of come back together like a slinky and catch the field. But I don't know if anybody's going to take that risk, especially when you're that far back. So he might be on his own out there.
Yeah, 7 seconds is kind of far away, Andre. Now, like I said, I'm not great with math by any stretch of the imagination, but seven is a pretty large number in racing.
Yes, that it is, and that number's just getting bigger every lap. So again, he's going to need a little bit of help there. But Cam Stone, speaking of big numbers, Cam Stone leading a lot of laps here. And he's trying to clinch the most laps led points if he can, but these guys behind him aren't making it easy. That top line is forming up again. Looks like Van de Sant on the top line. Now, remember, Van de Sant is the defending IROC champion from last year. Not had the best go at it this year, but definitely looking for some redemption, maybe with a win here at Charlotte. And Delaney just pushing that car, I mean, so hard. You saw them wiggle in the corner, and that's just because John is not lifting. I mean, I don't think John's foot has left the accelerator since the start of the race. I would imagine that when the caution came out and they had to slow down, John just slammed it down into first, just grinding the gearbox and left his foot on the accelerator, because I don't think he knows how to lift.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he doesn't, and you're starting to see them get more swirly as the tires start to wear. And as it keeps going, these guys are going to lose traction, lose grip, and we're going to see what happened earlier. I mean, we were lucky that realistically only 2 guys were fully damaged because of that incident. And I don't think we would be so lucky the next time, Andre.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of incredible to me that only 2 cars were taken out with that wreck. I mean, it was right at the very front of the field. You had the entire grid behind them, and somehow everybody kind of makes it through. But, luck is only going to strike so many times before things go bad. In my experience, things tend to only get worse as time goes on. So, we'll maybe not try to tempt fate with another wreck like that. But John, man, oh man, this onboard, it is terrifying. I mean, you can just see the swerving back and forth. I mean, even in the corners here, he's pushing them. I mean, just pushing them through the corner. You can see they get a little sideways, trying desperately to get up front, and it's working. I mean, they're making up ground a little bit each lap. Man, oh man, how many times can they do this before finally somebody makes a mistake?
Yeah, not trying to jinx anything, but I'm thinking here shortly we're going to be seeing some shakers and movers, some guys dropping to the back to avoid anything like this catastrophic happening. Especially, like I said, like you're seeing it every lap. I mean, again, I know it's not a smart idea to be bumping in the corners, especially with these noses pointed the way they are. But John and Alex are making it work, Andre.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we know that John's a good pusher, but you've got to be able to handle that bum draft. And so far, Alex Van de Sant has handled every single shot that John's given him, and it's worked out pretty well. But I think right now they just don't have enough cars. I mean, they're trying really hard, and they can get up to about 3rd place on the outside, and then they just kind of fall back in the corners just because how many cars are running that low line right now. Cam Stone really dominating the race from that low line. He's got the help of Lucas Hoytsma behind him. He's got Kevin Steele, who, we know he's fast. He led a couple laps there at the start of this stint here. And you got Matt Taylor, Joe Stafford there. Joe's obviously one heck of a driver. We call him short track Joe Stafford. This isn't exactly a short track, but I don't know. Joe's kind of a wheelman, and if he's in your line, you should be feeling pretty good about it. So as long as that bottom line's formed up, I just think John and Alex are going to have a bit of trouble. But again, we saw in that first stint, the top line comes in eventually. Once the tires start to wear, you're going to see more and more drivers go up there to join them. Just a bit of a waiting game.
Absolutely, Andre. And something that just came over the radio was John just asked Alex to quit moving up so high. So I'm wondering if the tires are really starting to get to that point where they're starting to fall off. These guys can't really control their slides as much anymore, and it's causing these guys to kind of think for evasive action. Now, something else I'm looking at here is J.R. Shepard, Andre, currently running in the 9th place, but he's in that perfect little window there where if he's ready to make a run, Andre, he can make it. And I mean, that car just looks sharp under the lights as well.
That is a nice gold color. Again, Kevin Steele doing all the paints and spec maps for the IROC series, and they all turned out really good, but that gold is definitely one that shines under the lights. I think it looks a lot better at night than it did during the day for sure. But I think you're right. JR, he's in a bit of a catbird seat right now, just watching the field, trying to keep an eye on them, see what they're doing, how they're doing it, and keeping himself within drafting distance. So in the meantime, is that Bryson Hixenbot back out on? It is. Bryson Hixenbot did rejoin the track. We just saw JR get around him there. He is 2 laps down, so he got back on track a long time ago. I just never noticed. Interesting to see. But, yeah, I mean, he's in a good position, especially if there's another incident. If something happens, he's far back enough. He's got plenty of time to react to it. And we'll just have to see. Again, this race is just, I mean, it's a plate race. It's anybody's game. Anybody that's still on the track, save for maybe Bryson being 2 laps down and maybe less of a chance there. But pretty much everybody on the lead lap has a shot at this thing. As you can see, Cody, now things are getting a little bit more intense.
Yeah, absolutely, Andre. And I was just looking at these drivers and seeing, like, we really didn't make a prediction here early on in this race. And at this point of the race, it's anybody's race to win. I mean, minus Joshua Chin, minus a caution, 13 seconds back. I mean, kind of have to hope for a massive Talladega-style wreck here coming up to have a shot. But looking at the bumps, they're getting heavier going into the corners. They're going down the backstretch, and the race is under 20 to go already, and these cars can fly.
Yeah, and I'm noticing that top line, Alex Van de Sant, John Delaney, they are suddenly making up a ton of time. I think John's radio message about staying a little bit lower on the track definitely is helping them to get up to these leaders, but it's a lot riskier. I think Alex Van de Sant was going up high for a reason. When he was getting these big shoves and the car was getting squirrely, he wanted to give himself as much room as possible to correct the car before he made contact with anybody, kind of give himself some space. But that was not fast. Going around the outside, just scraping along the safer barrier, wasn't exactly doing a lot to make up time on the leaders. Now that they're hugging that middle groove, just right alongside this bottom line, they've made up a ton of time, and there's contact in the quad oval. Little bit of a bump there. Somebody went off track as our leader gathers it up. Alex Van de Sant remains first on the outside line, but falling back to Delaney, who's going to be second on the outside line. And more or less, running order stays the same. Cameron Stone still out front, Lucas Hoytsma P2, and now they're going to have to try and regroup and do that again. If you're Alex Van de Sant, do you want to do it again? Because that was one heck of a close call.
Yeah, it looked like Joe Stafford was going for the short track on the infield here, Andre, when he went down low. But, yeah, I mean, it seems like they regroup pretty quick. And, again, this is what makes them kind of the best drivers on the surface. I mean, looking at how they're racing, I mean, bumping isn't necessarily a strong suit for a lot of people. And they're making it look easy, like I could go out and do it, which I'm not going to, so don't worry, Andre.
What happened last time you tried to bump draft, Cody?
Yeah. nothing good happens with that. So yes, we're not going to go back out there and try that.
You sure? I mean, we can get Dalton out on the track.
No, I'm good.
Okay. Well, we got another car joining that outside line. Looks like Taylor is actually going to link up there with John Delaney, see if he can help these guys get out front. 15 laps to go. Time is ticking down, and whoa! Big contact. Van de Sant into Delaney.
Oh,
and the caution flag does fly. Delaney hit that outside wall hard. I'm sure there is a lot of damage to that number 10. Looks like is anybody else involved? Trying to figure that out.
Let's go back to the bird vision replay here.
I think I'm okay. I have no idea.
So again, bump
That was
drafting.
wild.
I believe it's going to be the next time through the quad oval. So they're at a turn 2. They're going to come down the back straightaway, and you can see that third line was forming up. John's still trying to push Van de Sant. It's going to be coming up right here, coming out of turn 4 through the quad oval. A little bit of contact there. So Kevin Steele actually, I think, may have gotten Van de Sant out of line, as Kevin Steele made a little bit of a bump there. Actually, I'm not even sure whose fault that was. I don't know if Kevin came up or if Van de Sant came down. It's kind of hard to tell. Let's take another look at it. Yeah, I think that was just two cars kind of going for the same real estate. I feel like Kevin kind of weaved up a little bit, and Van de Sant kind of weaved down. I'd say, if anything, I think Van de Sant came further down than Kevin went up. But again, it's hard to tell. And this is a car that a lot of these drivers are not familiar with. So when they get door-to-door with somebody, they don't always have the best feel for where the car ends. Yeah, I definitely think Van de Sant came down more than Kevin came up, for sure.
It looked like...
And again... I was just going to say, I think that's why Van de Sant was running that higher line before John queued up the radio and told him not to. I think Van de Sant was trying to prevent that exact situation.
Yeah, I agree, Andre. And looking at that replay right there, it kind of looked like our famous case of iRacing netcode that happened right there. Ever so slightly to start that chain reaction.
And as we watch this slow-mo replay, I want to, again... call out Dan Fields. If you look at the chat, it says message retracted. Dan Fields is trying to cover his own behind. I want it to be known on this broadcast that before that message was retracted, Dan said that John Delaney would win this race. So with John being in that wreck, having a ton of damage, he's out of the event. Once again, Dan was wrong. I mean, like I said, you can't trust this guy. Not a word out of his mouth. You got to take everything he says with a grain of salt. And, sometimes just a whole bag of salt. You just want to dump it everywhere, like you're trying to ward off a ghost or something, because he can't be trusted. I mean, he's a menace. He's a menace to the racing community. I don't understand why Dan Fields is in this chat spreading lies, saying John Delaney's going to win this race. It doesn't make any sense to me, Cody.
Yeah. I mean, menace to society, but at the same point, he was bold enough to make a prediction here, Andre. So we've seen how many laps now? About 54 laps currently. Who would you say is your favorite to win this race currently?
Well, I mean, they're all my favorite because Dan Fields is not in the race.
Oh.
So,
okay.
So I mean, I'm going to go with Cameron Stone. I think Cam's kind of hungry for this win. And he's been doing a pretty good job holding on to this lead, even with the outside line getting really aggressive. And I think something to take note of on a more serious note here, getting back to the actual race, with John Delaney being out, he was one of the best pushers I think the outside line had. Probably one of the best pushers in the race. Now he's out of the race. None of these other guys are really getting as aggressive with the bumps other than Cam, who's in the lead and doesn't need to bump draft. So it's going to be a lot tougher now, I think, for that outside line to make any big runs, to really get out there. But I don't know. If they form up, they get side by side, maybe. But I think with John being out of this race, it's just going to be a lot easier for that low line to stay protected and kind of defend against that outside line. But we'll see. I mean, we're going to be going green with about 13 to go or 12 to go. So not a whole lot of laps, and it's going to be kind of an all-out sprint to the end.
Yeah, and something else to take into consideration with the IROC series is caution laps
Are you coming back
count.
out, Alex?
So that's a big thing. And I also apologize. You guys are getting driver chat and race control chat. But yeah, I think that's going to be a big thing. Something else to take into consideration too, Andre. Cam hasn't won in a very long time. And he's in the number 13 car. And it's graced the top 5 last week. And I'm going to pick Cam Stone too to put that 13 into victory lane for the first time.
And I'm also, for my secondary pick, if anything goes wrong with Cam, I got to say, Kevin Steele's been looking pretty good this race. And I got to feel like he was just kind of playing it smart. He did lead those couple of laps at the beginning of the stint. And then Cam got back around him, but Kevin never really fell through the grid, and he was doing a good job keeping Cam in the lead. He was pushing Hoytsma, who was in turn pushing Cam. So those guys were all working really well together. They had a lot of speed. They didn't look unstable by any means. So really, you got 2 really good drivers right now linking up. Cam and Kevin going to be on the bottom line as this restart takes effect here in just half a lap. But the outside's looking good too. You got Taylor; he's been a pretty good pusher. You've got Lucas Hoytsma on the outside now, who he's been pretty comfortable down low, but he does have some experience up top. So we'll see. And look at that, Dan Fields actually saying something that's true for once. That may be a first. 13 is cursed. Cody just ruined it. I don't know. I think we may have given him the commentator's curse there, Cody.
Yeah. I apologize, Cam, in advance. I'll send you. I'll be PayPaling you after this race. And it looks like we're about ready to get back going here.
Green flag.
Cam Stone gets a massive jump again, Andre, and starts to go out to the lead.
Yeah, he gets a really good jump there. And again, I think we're going to see that that lead kind of dissipate to nothing, just like we have every other restart. The draft is just so strong on the backstretch, even before they get wound up and get up to top speed. It just kind of brings them together. And looks like Hoytsma is actually going to dip out on that top line, say, all right, see you later. He just ducked down in line and behind the number 12 machine of Timothy Latham. Latham is a driver we haven't really talked a whole lot about tonight, but he's worked his way up the grid now in 4th place, trying to see if he can get up to these leaders. Matt Taylor in 3rd. Again, we've talked about him a little bit tonight, but just kind of silently gaining positions here and there, and right now currently running in the podium. Cam Stone, Kevin Steele still leading the way, and actually, kind of interestingly here, Cody, it's almost a 2-car breakaway. Kevin doing a good job pushing Cam out away from these guys, which is something that we haven't really seen tonight. But then as I say that, look at that corner by the number 9. That run was massive. I mean, he made up 4 car lengths in a single turn.
Yeah, absolutely, Andre. And something we were saying earlier in the race, which Joshua Chin just needed a caution to get back into this. And sure enough, he's 1 second off the pace, not out of the draft range right now, and looking to stay positive and maybe go 3 for 3 here.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely has a shot at it now that he is back in the draft, and I got to think that patience is probably gone. We're coming to 10 to go at the line, which is practically no time at all at a track like Charlotte. So it is officially go time. If you're Joshua Chin, if you're J.R. Shepard, if you're anybody who is not on the podium, you might want to start passing cars right about now, because you may not have an opportunity every single lap. You may find yourself a little bit stuck behind these guys, so you kind of want to work your way up through the grid as early as you can, so you got a shot at this thing. And it really is just a matter of choosing your overtakes. With the slipstream and the draft, it's not about getting a better corner. It's not about taking a better line. It's about knowing when you're going to get the run, knowing where you can take the run, and most importantly, knowing when not to take the run. We've seen a few drivers take runs that led to catastrophe. So got to play it smart. And obviously we've seen Joshua Chin play some really good strategy and then race really well this year. So we're not going to count him out with 9 to go. Cam Stone's still in the lead. Got to think that Cam is closing in on cinching that most laps led point bonus as well, as we are now 8 to go at the line. Behind our leader, it's pretty much too wide all the way back. 3 cars on the top line. A little bit of contact between Taylor and Steele. They're going to gather it up. I'm noticing these cars can bump a little bit, even in the corner, and they're not getting completely squirrely, so that's kind of interesting. I would have expected these cars to be a little bit floaty as more contact puts Hoytsma into the wall hard alongside Taylor. That may have been some more iRacing netcode. I'm not entirely certain, but the way that car rocketed off of Kevin Steele, I mean, it did not look natural by any means.
Yeah.
And that's going to put Hoytsma out of the running, I would assume. I mean, that was a ton of damage to the passenger side, and that pretty much single filed them out. Big question is, what did that do to Joshua Chin? Because I think Josh actually may have slowed down to avoid that. He is now 2 seconds back from our leader. We got 2 cars behind these guys. J.R. Shepard, Joshua Chin together, 2 seconds back. So they're out of the draft range of the lead pack, but they can draft one another. So we'll see what they can do with 6 to go. Cam Stone still in the lead as Kevin Steele pushes them out front.
Absolutely, Andre, and unfortunately can't really get to the replay here quickly without missing some of this action. And it kind of looks like the second group past this two-car breakaway is trying to form up, trying to get a run, and trying to upset the rest of the field, Andre, as it keeps going. And it's funny enough, we say about this damage. Look who's back and forth, Andre.
Yeah, Alex Van de Sant, who did get some damage earlier in the race, he is in 4th place. So, these cars might be a little bit rugged. I don't know a whole lot about the new damage model. I know iRacing completely changed it around, and I definitely don't know a lot about the damage on this particular car, but it seems like they can take a hit so long as you're not just pounding it into the outside wall so hard that you're going to break an axle. So, interesting to see here. But Cam and Kevin still holding a pretty decent lead over that second pack, but again, every single straightaway that second pack is able to close in pretty well. Just going to have to wait and see if they can get a big enough run, because for them, it's not just going to be passing one car. They're going to have to overtake 2 cars, and that means the run's got to be even bigger, and you got to be even more confident. Because I don't think Cameron and Kevin are going to really be, well, I don't think they're going to be separating until the last lap. At that point, it's no holds barred, but right now they're working together. It's benefiting them both, so I don't see that changing. Should be calling him Cameron. I know Cam mentioned to me the other night in chat that his mother does not like when we call him Cam. Prefers when we call him Cameron. I go back and forth on the broadcast, so I'm sorry, Miss Stone, if you're watching. Cameron Stone leading the way currently, but that outside line, Cody, look at that. 4 cars challenging for the lead. Going to be 2 to go at the line.
Yeah, absolutely, and again, simple math, 4 greater than 2, so what do we see happening here as it looks like they're dropping back down low and just going to be content to ride here until the final lap? I think they were trying to see what was out there and if they were going to be able to make a move.
And that is not good for Timothy Latham. That kind of left him out to dry on that outside line. No draft help. That sent him back a ways, and now he's going to have to try to work with Van de Sant. Van de Sant jumped up to the outside line. I think he tried to get back down to the bottom, but the door had closed. White flag is in the air. Cameron Stone is going to be the first to see it as they come into turn 1 for the final time of the race. Things getting really dicey. Short track Joe Stafford moves up to 3rd on that bottom line. He's been shuffling his way up the running order. Bottom line more formed up than the top. I don't see the top really being able to get anywhere quite yet, as a huge incident happens. Short track Joe Stafford through the grass. More contact behind him. It's going to be Cameron Stone to the line. Does Kevin Steele have anything for him? No. Cam in the number 13 is going to take the win.
How about that, Andre? Wow, what a finish we had.
Well, that was a race.
Yeah, I knew things were going to get dicey. I didn't quite expect it to happen on the backstretch. I kind of thought that was going to happen coming to the line on the quad oval, but you got to get the run early. So, these guys were just trying to get the momentum up, and coming down the back straightaway, things got a little bit too crazy. And unfortunately, Stafford, who had just
straighten it out as quick as possible,
really stormed his way up through the grid, gets the bad end of it. That's probably the 3rd time tonight, Cody, that Joe Stafford had to evade somebody else's incident and got the worst end of it. So not a very lucky night for Joe, but had a lot of speed. Cameron Stone's going to bring it down to the infield here at the start-finish line, do some burnouts. First IROC win of the season. Actually, is that his first IROC win ever, Cody? Did he win in season 1 or 2?
I don't believe he did. I think he came close a couple times, and I believe this is his first win in the IROC series. So congratulations to Cam Stone here tonight, winning at Charlotte.
And if it's not his first win, I blame my misinformation on Dan Fields. He didn't give me this information. I'm just blaming him.
That's always a good option. Just blame Dan. But why don't you say we start to pull up some of these drivers and have a word with them about their.
Yeah, I didn't mean
well,
to
let's
cut
do
you
a
there,
final
Timothy.
rundown
I thought
first.
you and Matt were wrecking.
Forgot about that part.
The final running order looks like if the left-hand
No,
scoring
you're good.
assignment
I was
is to
trying to
be
catch my bearings
believed,
after that
which I hope
anyway.
it is, Cameron Stone walks away with the win. We knew that. Kevin Steele, P2. Matt Taylor is going to be third. Alexander Van Desant, after all the damage that he had accrued in those incidents, still somehow finishes fourth. Joshua Chin with the top 5. He rode around back of the field pretty much all night long. He was
Hey,
waiting for
Matt
some chaos to happen to
needs
capitalize on it,
jump into the
and
store and put
it
you
happened,
down
and he did
into the
capitalize on
broadcast.
it. A solid finish for the number 8 of Josh Chin. J.R. Shepard as well, capitalizing on that incident, coming at home in 6th. Timothy Latham, Joe Stafford, Bryson Nixon, Lucas Hoitzma is going to round out your top 10. And behind them, John Delaney, Adam Benefiel. You got to shout out Race Control. Damaris not in the race, but up in the booth watching the cars, watching the race, making sure everything goes smoothly. Got to appreciate that. But Cam's going to do his Polish victory lap, and we're just going to wait for some of these drivers to file into the waiting room here. I do see Kevin, our second place finisher. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get third. Don't see. Okay, Matt Taylor is in a chat. Let me move him real quick.
Yeah, you're better with this than I am, Andre.
All right, we got him. I'm going to pull up third place. Matt Taylor, you got a copy?
I do.
Well, Matt, you had a really good night tonight. There was a lot of chaos. Anytime you've got a race with bump drafting involved, I think it's kind of a nervous situation for everybody, and we did see our fair share of incidents. But you kept the car clean, you played it really smart, and you walked away with a podium.
Yeah, thanks. This car is pretty wild. You have kind of a lot of slack in the steering in the middle, and then it grips up, and the car wants to move all over the place, and you combine that with a very pointy nose, and to say that bump drafting is interesting is probably an understatement.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we were riding along with some of you guys out there on the onboard cameras, and it didn't look smooth on the bump draft, and it looked like you guys were doing everything in your power to keep it pointed in the right direction. Other than that, what was the handling like for the cars out there? Was there any amount of tire wear? I mean, it didn't really look like it from a spectator's perspective, but what did the car feel like?
It's a little hard to tell. Definitely say like the third car back in line, I really struggled keeping the car down and keeping grip in it, which I think was just from dirty air. But like coming out of 3 or coming out of 4 and then through the trial, the car just snaps loose at each little turn, and you're combining that with bump drafting and everything else going on. Man, the handling is just all over the place where you're tight, you're snap loose. It is just all over the place.
Now, you were kind of in the thick of it, I think, for most of the incidents, being kind of in the middle of the grid for most of the race there until the end. When that chaos all happened, I mean, what was the strategy there? Just try to go where they're not, or what was going on there?
Just kind of trying to study and see if there was any run forming, or if you could really get a run. You had to. I think Alex and a few other guys showed that you could kind of get that outside going a little bit, but man, they were razor edge to get that thing moving forward, and it just seemed like eventually it was going to go wrong, and just happened to be in the right place at the right time and kind of sliced my way back through there.
Absolutely. All right, well, before we let you go, Matt, is there anybody that you'd like to shout out or thank?
Not right offhand. I thank these guys for the invite. This has been a lot of fun, and you guys recognizing Lionheart's pretty cool, so thank you.
Alrighty, well, again, congratulations on the podium, and hopefully we're talking to you next week, Matt.
Yep, appreciate it, guys.
All right, we're going to bring up second place Kevin Steele and see what he's got to say.
This should be interesting. Kevin,
All
you
right.
got a copy. This is Cody up in the booth.
Yes, sir.
All right, Kevin, so walk us through your race. You started up front, and it seemed like you had the good strategy early and led some laps, so walk us through your race.
Man, I don't really remember a whole lot of it. It was very stressful. I'd like to say I had fun, but my hands really hurt. This car is pretty wild. It was kind of all over the place, and it was really hard to to just keep the thing going in a straight line when you had all the aero going on around you. But it was pretty quiet until I don't even remember what happened. At some point, John and Alex went up on the outside, and they were the fastest way around the outside line was to get as close to the inside line as possible, and they were doing that, and it was just I don't know how many times I doored Alex and John, but it was more than a handful. It was wild, but yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, so walk us through that incident that you did have with Van de Sant that brought out the second caution of the night. It kind of looked like netcode kind of came into play a little there, but at the same time it looked like you may have came up a little and Alex came down a little, causing it.
I don't know if there was netcode. I didn't watch it, but I'm sure I'm absolutely positive I came up at some point because we hit 2 or 3 times in that corner before we actually wrecked. I didn't know if I was hitting John or him, but we touched. I think it was in 3 and 4. We just hit a couple times, and it just eventually either knocked him out of balance or netcode did its deal. But yeah, it was unfortunate, but there wasn't a whole lot that you could do on the inside line, obviously, when you're pinned in like there, and we were like that for it felt like 40 laps. I know it wasn't that long, but you know, you've got maybe 4 or 5 inches to deal with there, and whew, that's enough for me.
Yeah, you guys definitely gave us a good show up here in the booth tonight. Is there anyone you want to shout out tonight?
Shout out my boy Stone. Glad to see him back in victory lane. It's been a while, but I was trying to stick to his bumper as close as I could that last lap to help him, and I think the car behind me was pushing me, and the car behind him was pushing him, and we were all going to wreck going into turn 3. So I don't know how some of us survived that, but shout out to my parents if they're up watching. Shout out to Damaris for putting this league on. It is a lot of fun. And shout out to you guys for hanging in there. And yeah, I'm going to go to bed.
Sounds like a good plan there, Kevin. Well, congrats on your great run tonight, and hopefully we're talking with you next week.
You're awful quiet over there, Dirt.
It was Cody's interview. I had to let him go.
Yeah, I kind of hijacked it from him. My bad.
All right, thanks, guys.
See you, Kevin.
Bye.
All right, we're gonna bring up race winner Cameron Stone. We'll see what he's thinking about this race. Sure, he's pretty happy. Cameron Stone, you got a copy?
Yes, sir.
Well, Cam, pretty sure you led the most laps and you brought home the win. Looked like it was just kind of a game of defense there towards the end, but even being out front, this whole race looked pretty sketchy. How were you feeling behind the wheel?
Oh man, the way these Corvette grills are just pointed, you can't really get lined up with anybody to get a good push. And I knew guys were going to try to make it run on the outside. That first caution was me and Bryson trying to make it work on the outside, but you know, these pointy noses, if you get off center just a little bit, you'll hook a guy in a heartbeat. So, you know, taking out Bryson and Adam right there at the beginning was not intentional at all. It was just kind of got behind on the steering from where Bryson was at, hooked him going into one, and it happened several more times tonight. So these things definitely are not built to push, but the way we're racing all on top of each other, you got to lock them together to get anything out of it.
Yeah, it definitely looked like you had to bump draft if you wanted to go anywhere. It just wasn't easy to do. But what was it like being out front? I mean, how much mirror driving were you doing out there, and how worried were you about the top line?
So once I took the lead, I think I was around lap 23 or so. I don't think I saw the track until the end of the race. I was just watching the mirror. I would look down on the front stretch, you know, to make sure I was hitting the corner of the grass, going through the tri-oval so nobody could cut under me. But, you know, other than that, I knew where my landmarks were on the track to look down and say, all right, there's the corner, turn now, and just look back up in the mirror and make sure, you know, the guy behind me wasn't getting too far to the left or too far to the right. Kind of trying to keep an eye on the outside line to make sure they weren't getting too big of a run or anything. Yeah, it's just like racing a cup car at Daytona. You know, once you're the guy in front, you spend a whole lot more time looking behind you than you do in front.
Now, when you were further back in the grid, did you feel like the top line really had anything at any point, or was it just completely bottom line dominant?
Obviously, early in the race, a lot of guys were just trying to make it to the end. So it's kind of the same deal when you're doing restrictor plate racing in NASCAR. The guys get on the bottom and they just kind of ride in the line. Nobody wants to push too hard, so that inside line's moving fast because there's a lot of cars in it. But they're not moving as fast as they could if they were, really pushing each other. So saw a couple of guys go up to the top and made it about halfway up the field, and then John, who was second at the time, started pushing, and then it didn't work. So once me and Bryson got out there, we got up to the front. We almost cleared the front two before the incident happened going into one. So the top line could work if the two guys on the bottom weren't really linked up very well, and the two guys on top were. But you had to be so much better on the top to get past anybody that it really wouldn't have been worth it, which is why most of the issues and cautions that happened in the race came from the top line trying too hard.
Yeah, definitely seems like it. Now, my last question here, and I was kind of thinking about this the whole race, but I believe it was either you or somebody else last race at the road course mentioned that a lot of you guys aren't used to this car and how wide it is. You don't really have that spatial awareness that you're used to with your standard vehicles. Was that made even worse with how close the racing was today? I mean, was the spatial awareness at all kind of scary, or have you finally gotten used to it here 3 races in?
It seemed like definitely in the tri-oval, guys would, the guys on the top line are thinking, all right, we can kind of cut down here. And then the guys on the bottom line are like, all right, I don't want to cut through the grass. So a lot of people were coming together, top line and bottom line meeting up in the middle there. But I think the biggest problem for me in this car is that it just feels like there's so much extra car off to the right. And I can't really figure out where the end of the car is, and I think a lot of guys were having the same problem on the inside line because I could see them door bouncing off each other every couple of laps. And 3 races. Well, last race really didn't help us out too much with figuring out where the barriers of the car was. I know that was me that said something last week because I basically hopped wheels with RJ in Oval 4 at Kansas. But last week, since it was a road course, nobody was really doing a whole lot of drafting games and stuff like that. So we didn't learn anything about the parameters of the car. So this is the first time we've done much drafting since Indy. So I still think most of the field, if not everybody, is still kind of unsure where the corners of the car are. I think we figured out where the front is. We could push each other. And
definitely found that out.
Yeah, we found where the front of the car is. But as long as you don't get that point messed up, as long as you don't get that pointy part in the middle messed up, you're all right. But the sides of the car and the width of it is just kind of throwing everybody off. And I also think that the car is wider at the rear, which has kind of been a problem for a few people so far. So we'll see how that goes at Daytona.
Yeah, speaking of Daytona, I mean, that's going to be a lot like this, just kind of on steroids, bigger track, a little bit more room to work with left and right, but kind of the same sort of slipstream racing. How do you feel about Daytona?
I think Daytona is going to be a little bit better than this race was. I think that the outside line is going to have a lot more momentum there. Corners aren't as tight. You don't have to bind the car down. It's so bad to make the corner from the top side. So I think you might see 2, maybe even 3 wide racing. If we get more than 12 cars showing up, I think we got 15 or 16 guys in the league. So if everybody shows up next week, there's a possibility to have some 3 wide battles going on there. So that's going to be pretty interesting to see if the top line can still be good in this car like it is usually in the NASCAR stuff.
Only time will tell. Well, before we let you go, Cam, is there anybody that you'd like to shout out or thank?
Shout out Kevin for making some pretty sick paint schemes for these cars. I know the designs are all the same, but the colors are pretty awesome. Hey, the number 13 car won a race, so shout out to Cody. I broke the unlucky streak here in 100% for the 13 car. Shout out to Carmen for letting me spend time playing video games and driving make-believe race cars. Shout out you boys up there in the booth. No, you guys always do a good job for us and appreciate y'all. Shout out to Adam. Came out here and led the first 22 laps and then died and took his ball and went home. Shout out to Bryson for not being mad for me killing him on lap 22. Just everybody in the field, bunch of great drivers here, and I do enjoy mixing it up with them every week. Kind of sad that it's coming to an end next week, but hopefully we can still get a run at this championship. Appreciate Damaris for putting this thing on, and thanks everybody that's watching.
All right. Well, thanks for your time, Cam. Congratulations on the win. We will see you at Daytona.
Thank you.
And that is going to do it for our final interview. And that should just about wrap it up for the broadcast. Cody, that was a pretty fun race. Obviously, restrictor plate racing. These cars don't have restrictor plates, but it's the same style of racing. Always very chaotic. I kind of refer to it as a bit of a lottery more than anything else. And I would say tonight definitely was pretty unpredictable and kind of fun to watch. So I don't know. What do you think?
I thought it was a great race through and through, Andre. I mean, we saw side-by-side racing the entire time, and even at the end, we still didn't know who was going to come out on top. And so it was a great race. And next week, you can look forward to 3Y TV coming back, so make sure that you're over there following them and get notified when they go live, Andre.
Absolutely. All right. We will see everybody at Daytona. Thanks for tuning in. We will catch you next time.